Day 2, two-step inequalities. 4-4 practice worksheet, fill it in as we go with the notes. Don't subtract, add the opposite. Again, focusing on the side with the variable. We're going to get rid of the 7. That is our goal. So now we've got 3m less than 9. And from here, we can divide both sides by 3. If you want to put the answer in the blank line, you can. I'm just going to keep going on down. Don't forget, we must ask ourselves every time, did we multiply or divide by a negative? When we do not, keep the sign the same. And again, with the graphing somewhere in the middle-ish, put the numbers greater or warmer to the right and less than lower to the left. Less than, open sign, and shading to the left. Again, pick a number. Which way do you think it goes? Think it goes to the left, all right? Is 0 less than 3? Since it is, shade it to the left. Again, doesn't matter what side the variable is on, focus on the side with it. Ignore the negative 5r. So our first step is to get rid of this positive 2. So again, you can subtract 2, or I'm going to add a negative 2. This step, we're not concerned since we're just adding or subtracting. And then on this one again, get rid of the negative 5 since they're touching and timesing to start. Divide both sides by negative. Watch your signs. Again, leave a spot. Draw that arrow. Ask yourself, did we multiply by a negative? When we say yes, then you must flip the sign. Again, somewhere in the middle-ish, if there's a lot of them, put in your closed circle since it's the greater than or equal to sign. And again, with those numbers, watch them along the bottom. Be careful. I think it goes to the right, Mr. Walls. Awesome. So is 3 greater than or equal to 8? No. So, oops, not that way. Okay, shade the other way. Perfect. Again, you can slow down. You can rewatch this, rewind it as much as you'd like. Otherwise, moving on. Fractions, your choice. You can use them as fractions, which is perfectly fine. Or try dividing it out. 1 divided by 2, well, that comes out nicely in your calculator. So let's rewrite that as 0.5. Mental math or calculator, now it's a little bit easier. You want to leave it as a fraction? Go right ahead. That also works. Again, focusing on the side with the variable. We're going to focus here and get rid of this adding half by subtracting it or adding a negative. So you're left with 2k greater than 0.5. And then you divide both sides by 2, which is great. And when you're looking at that again, always ask our question, did you multiply or divide by a negative? If no, leave the sign the same, box it up, and as per usual, here you get your choice. Do you want to go by 1.25, 2.25? You can do that. I'm going to skip every other one here since there's so many of them, and I'm just going to go up by tenths. So 0.26, 0.27, same thing this way, skipping a line. Just making life a little bit easier that way. However you want to graph it, make sure your numbers are greater to the right and that you have shaded the right way. Again, think it goes that way. Check a number. Is 0.27 greater than 0.25? Is 27 hundredths greater than 25 hundredths? Is it 27 cents more than 25 cents? Yes. As per usual, don't subtract, add the opposite. Wherever the variable is, focus on that side. Our first step is going to be to get rid of this adding 4, which you can subtract 4, or I always add a negative 4. Careful, don't forget that that's a negative 1.5c, less than or equal to 6. And then you come here and, because they're touching, divide by negative 1.5 on both sides. You get c. And again, feel free to use that calculator. And when you're talking about that, divide them out using calculator or mental math. Watch your signs, so that way you remember that is a negative 4. And again, here we go. Did we multiply by a negative? Yes. So flip the sign. Watch out with these negatives. Remember, the temperatures get warmer, the numbers get greater to the right, and they're colder or lower to the left. Whichever way you think it shades. Oh, I think it goes 0, Mr. Walls. Check it Does 0 work? Is 0 greater than or equal to -4? Is it warmer? Yes, it is. So shade that way. It says write and solve an inequality in number 5. Those are things we have to do. So to be able to write it, we must read it through. Moving truck is what we're renting. There is a daily fee of $20, excuse me, and a 75 cents per mile. That's the big clue there. So that means when we're writing it, we only get charged the $20 once, but the 75 cents per mile needs a variable. Now, this is where we must look at it. If the maximum cost can be $65, we do not want to go over 65. That does not work with our budget. So this cost must be less than or equal to 65. So that is writing the inequality done. Ooh, except it says to solve. So here we go. Focusing on the variable wherever it's at and solving. So now you have 75 hundredths m, or 0.75 m, less than or equal to 45. Divide by 0.75, divide by 70 hundredths, and then we've got m. And again, use a calculator. You can use mental math, but just grab a calculator to go quicker with that. Watch your signs and everything. Again, did we multiply by a negative? Nope. So here's where we get the 60 when you take the top divided by the bottom. We did not multiply by a negative, so leave the sign the same. So here is your inequality. If it said to interpret it, what does this mean? This means m, I chose m for miles, we can drive within our budget at most 60 miles. We can drive between 0 and 60 miles, anywhere between there, and still be in our budget. When you look at the back side, talked about these on day 1. 2 different ways to solve it. I'll show you one way on this one, and then I'm just going to distribute on the rest of these. So away we go. So what we can do, there's 2 different options. We distributed the whole time through. You can also realize, since the 2 and the parentheses are touching, that means they're timesing. We can do the opposite right away if we want to. So we're dividing by a negative. This is new. If you don't like this, this is fine. We don't have to do this method. You can always distribute, and I'll show that to you on the rest of these. So we've got those. So again, since we say no here, we'll just cancel out the 2's. We're left with b plus a -4. Keep the sign the same. Watch our value here. That needs to be a -3. And then solve this. b greater than 1. Don't like that method? Good news. Don't use it. Just use the distributive property. Distributing meaning draw a loop. Whoop. Get -8p plus whoop, -24. Yes, it needs to be negative. Watch those signs when you are multiplying. Again, this is not the whole way through, just distributing, so don't ask our question. And now focusing in on our side here, I'm going to add a +24 to both sides. Whether you're using mental math or a calculator, watch your signs. Make sure you type everything in there correctly. And then we come here and we're going to divide by -8. So p and -5, and here we go. Did we divide by a negative? Yes. Flip. Please write it in, as this is notes on your homework and assignment. I'm not grading that, but you need to ask that. So I'm having you do that here so we can see that option. This has a fraction, maybe not our favorite, but we can still make it work. So again, don't want to do what we did up here. That's fine. Distribute. We get 5/3 d plus, 5/3 times a -6. A -6 as a fraction is -6/1. You can cross cancel or do your fraction dance, whichever you'd like. So that's going to give us a -10. Where did that come from? Here's the work. Again, rewatch it if we need to. Perfectly fine. Just distributing, so don't ask our question. Now, here we go. Add a +10 to both sides, so we get 25 greater than or equal to 5/3 d. And now normally what you would do is we would sit here and say, since the 5 and the 5/3 is touching the d, they're multiplying, We're going to divide by 5/3. Oop, but anytime you feel yourself dividing by a fraction, we think, nope, don't do that. Last year we talked about 3 words: slide, switch, and flip. So when we talk about those, if you ever feel yourself writing out a fraction, you think slide, switch, flip from last year. So multiply by the reciprocal, the flip, which will be 3/5. And again, we've got to ask ourselves, did we multiply by a negative? Nope. All right, so we'll leave the sign the same. Again, 25 as a fraction is 25 over 1. Whether you want to cross cancel or if you want to multiply it on out, you'll get the answer 15 is greater than or equal to D. Decimals, oh no, it doesn't matter. Same thing. Rinse, lather, repeat. Distribute. Use a calculator to get your numbers here. Just distributing, so don't do any switching of anything. We just go ahead and multiply them out. Again, use a calculator. Watch your signs to make sure you've got the right ones. Focusing on the side with the variable. Going to add a -4 8/10 to both sides. Use the calculator, watch your signs. This needs to be a -1.4, -1 4/10. And then divide both sides by 0.4. Again, as we're looking at that, did we multiply or divide by a negative? Only concerned about this number? Nope. Sign stays the same. And again, watch your positive and negatives, mental math or calculator. When you divide those out, it's going to be a -3.5. The instructions just said to solve, so you're good to go. Quickly, these last ones here. Write and solve an inequality that represents a value of x for the area. How do we find the area of a square or a rectangle? So since we're writing for area, you're going to take your length times your width. So I'm just going to write it out as 5 times x minus 2, or don't subtract, add the opposite. And now we want that area to be at least 35 feet. You've written an inequality. Now you can solve it either way. Distribute it on out, works great. Or the other method I showed on that first problem. Either way works. The choice is yours. You get 5x greater than 45. Again, divide by 5, divide by 5, x and 9. And did we multiply by a negative? Nope, so the sign stays the same. You've got that. And just kind of a little bit review from last chapter. Just going to work on this one quick. You're not going to see one on your homework. That doesn't mean stop now, but keep watching. Switch all the the subtractions to adding the opposites. And then anything that has a like term. So on this side, combine the 3x plus the -7x to give you -4x plus 2. Can't combine those, they don't have letters. And then 10 minus 12, or 10 plus a -12 here, gives you a -2. You're just combining like terms. So that now is gone. So now we can just focus in here on this inequality and solve this guy like we've been solving the rest of them. -4x less than -4. Divide both sides by -4. X and 1. Did we multiply by a negative? Yes, so flip it. X greater than 1, so somewhere in the middle-ish. Put the 1, greater numbers, warmer temperatures to the right, lower, less than to the left. Because it's just greater than, open circle. Think it goes to the right, Mr. Walls, great. Is 6 greater than 1? Yes, it is. So then we've picked the right direction. Again, feel free to re-watch these as you'd like. Otherwise, you are done with your notes.